request of Mrs. Tingley, who was establishing a TS group in Point Loma. So he and Mrs. Crosbie moved to there, and as was required to do so, they sold all their possessions, their house and everything in New Hampshire, went over to California to start a new life at Point Loma. He worked with this for about 4 years, trying to get things back on track. He then realized what was going on in the Theosophical Society, worked to try to get it back on track, saw that there was really nothing he could do about it. So he and his wife left Point Loma penniless. And in retrospect, he said, "I was in Boston and had no reason to doubt the statement of those in New York, whom I believe to be sincere and of good training and judgment. I should have known by other means the true state of affairs when Judge passed out of life. I lost touch with him. Doubtless I relied on him too much and had not exercised my own intuition. From later events, my comprehension is that the loss of touch was purposely done in order that I might strengthen my weakness in that direction." 1906 to 1907 time frame finds Mr. Crosbie trying to get established in Los Angeles and make a living. He got a low-paying bookkeeping job with the Los Angeles Times. He and his wife found a rental property in South Pasadena, which they rented. He became acquainted with some neighbors who were interested in matters along the lines of his interest. He started a study group based on the ocean of theosophy and the key to theosophy. They then, a couple of years later, some in this group and the Band of Seven established the United Lodge of Theosophists, and Mr. Crosbie wrote the declaration as well as some detailed papers as to why ULT was being established, an open letter to all open-minded Theosophists. So February 18, 1909, ULT was launched. And ULT mission and its mission in the future was another a publication that came out about then, and some statements relative to this. They cannot learn the truth about nature and themselves in any other school than that provided in Theosophy, and in the lessons to be learned from self-study and the study of theosophical history. The Theosophists of the day are faced with the same inherent difficulties, the same problems, the same weaknesses, but the real lack of them is the real lack now. The disposition to face the facts, to make the necessary effort, to gain first-hand knowledge of theosophy as a basis and standard of discrimination and judgment, and then the will to act upon those finally established principles. He stressed impersonality. He stressed anonymity, anonymous, to protect the work and protect the workers from pride and ambition. So to this day, when students get up and talk, they don't introduce their names. They don't say anything about their own background. It's the pure and simple message of theosophy that they are responsible for presenting. November 1912, the Theosophy magazine was founded. 1915, the Theosophy School was started, all because of the work of Mr. Crosbie and the people who are working with him. Because for Children Who Ask Why was published in 1916, 1917, 1918 time frame. He actually put the music to some of the Theosophy songs, some of the Theosophy school songs himself. 1917 and 18 finds again he's getting up in age at that time. He attended personally to an incessant stream of correspondence from unknown inquirers who came in some way to learn of him. He was very attentive to his correspondence, trying to help others in any way he could. He died as he had lived, calm and serene, with no word of complaint during the days of intense suffering that preceded his release. He died on June 25, 1919, 22 years ago, 92 years ago from yesterday. So, in the obituaries, there were some statements that should be pointed out. He wrote, "How shall we apply theosophy in daily life? First, to think what we are in reality on arising, to endeavor to realize what this small segment of our great existence may mean in the long series of such existences, to resolve to live throughout the day from the highest of our realizations, to see in each event and circumstance a reproduction in small or in great of that which has been, and to deal with each and every one of these from that same high point." Other quotes that are very important to consider: Theosophy. The theosophy of masters of HPB and Judge is the sick world's only cure, since it has been to them the death of selfishness, who grasped its mighty import from a simple, selfless man, Robert Crosbie. Another quote: "That which men call death is but a change of location for the ego, a mere transformation, a forsaking for a time of the mortal frame, a short period of rest before one reassumes another human frame in the world of mortals. The Lord of this body is nameless, dwelling in numerous tenements of clay. It appears to come and go, but neither death nor time can calm it, for it is deathless, unchangeable and pure, beyond time itself, and not to be measured." There is always one witness on the scene. In this case, it was Robert Crosbie. After the death of Mr. Judge, Robert Crosbie kept the link unbroken. He was a quiet, earnest, steadfast person. If we want to characterize HPB, she was a creator of the modern theosophical movement. Mr. Judge was the preserver. Mr. Crosbie, the regenerator. The hints that Mr. Judge gave in regard to Mr. Crosbie were not perceived properly, and the mess, as this student talked about, came about. So the work of ULT continues on. 3 months after Mr. Crosbie's departure from the scene, Mr. B.P. Wadia heard about his work, went to LA to the ULT there, did a lot of research, went back to Ms. Besant and the TS and tried to get things changed. He could not do it, so he then resigned from TS and continued the ULT movement. He established, was instrumental in establishing a number of lodges, including the one in D.C., New York, and a number of others. And the work has gone on with, again, the publication of the original teachings of the Masters of Wisdom as handed down by HPB and Mr. Judge, so that we can all continue to approach these two teachers directly. The theosophy is in the world is not due to Theosophists, but to HPB and her masters. That it was maintained in its purity during her lifetime was not due to her followers, but to her loyalty. That it was maintained in unbroken continuity for 5 years after her departure was not due to the Theosophical Society, its esoteric section, its officers and fellows, but to William Q. Judge and his loyalty to teacher and teaching. That the theosophy of HPB and WQJ is in the world today, that the history of the Theosophical movement is of record, that the movement itself continues as it was begun, true without variableness, or the shadow of turning to the original inspiration and the original channel, is not due to any of the Theosophical societies or successes of leaders, but to the loyalty of Robert Crosbie, a humble pupil who chose with his eyes open to follow in the footsteps of the predecessors. And one more final quote. The secret doctrine, two more quotes, literal ones. The secret doctrine, 1925, I should have said, there was like 30,000 alterations in the secret doctrine that was in print at that time. A number of the publications have come out and been reprinted. The prime objective of the ULT continues to be to remove all barriers between the student and the message of theosophy as it was presented by HPB and her colleague and co-worker William Q. Judge. Therefore, the original texts are reprinted, and every inquirer is encouraged to approach these two teachers directly.